The Force of Not Responding, How to Get a Handle on Your Feelings, composed by Equity O. Malcolm, distributed by Book Recordings Office. Presentation. Contemplate how much more straightforward life would be if you would stay calm and collected under tension. Imagine yourself in high-pressure situations where you can maintain a calm demeanor and answer normally as opposed to following up without really thinking. You are going to peruse The Force of Not Responding, How to Get a Grip on Your Feelings, a book that will show you how to turn out to be sincerely savvy, how to coordinate your responses, and how to keep your head on straight in any circumstance. At any point when you're irate or baffled, do you say or do something you come to lament profoundly? Everybody has. At the point when we let our feelings control us, we could act carelessly, which isn't generally something worth being thankful for. However, is it conceivable to change it? Envision briefly an existence where you had some control over your response rather than simply responding automatically. Gaining that inestimable ability is inside your compass with the assistance of this book. Our process starts by grasping the significance of profound control. Feelings are a characteristic and essential piece of being human, yet when they take the driver's seat, they can steer us off course. This book will assist you with perceiving the triggers that flash profound responses and give you systems to really deal with those feelings. By overseeing your responses, you'll have the option to deal with difficulties with effortlessness and pursue choices that mirror your actual goals. The initial step is perceiving the distinction among responding and answering. Responding is much of the time an automatic, programmed reaction driven by feeling, while at the same time answering includes insightful thought and conscious activity. This book will show you how to move from receptive to responsive way of behaving by developing mindfulness and care. You'll figure out how to stop in snapshots of stress, giving yourself the space to pick a reaction that lines up with your objectives and values. We will currently investigate care in additional detail. To keep up with close-to-home guideline, one should rehearse care, which is focusing in the present time and place without letting one's contemplations and sentiments dominate. This book gives simple-to-carry-out care rehearses that you can utilize consistently to turn out to be more mindful and less responsive to your sentiments. Being mindful can assist you with getting the self-restraint and point of view you really want to deal with any hindrance directly. An extra compelling strategy for managing feelings is breathing activities. The physiological reaction to push is to straighten out and inhale all the more shallowly, which thus causes you to feel significantly more restless. To assist you with answering mindfully, decrease pressure, and loosen up your sensory system, this book will walk you through simple breathing activities. The book likewise investigates the significance of understanding the main drivers of your profound responses. Frequently our most extraordinary responses are attached to annoying issues or previous encounters. By distinguishing these hidden triggers, you can address them straightforwardly, diminishing their control over your feelings. This book gives activities to uncovering and mending these profound injuries, permitting you to answer all the more tranquilly and normally later on. The Force of Not Responding gives accounts of veritable individuals who have excelled at close-to-home guideline. Standing by listening to their encounters will wake you up to the worth of close-to-home authority and urge you to try these examples in your own life. You'll find that your connections, independent direction, and generally speaking personal satisfaction are undeniably improved when you figure out how to get a grip on your feelings. The capacity to deal with your feelings is something you have, so remember that as you set before out along these lines. An existence of quiet, clearness, and significance might be yours when you excel at non-imprudent reaction. Welcome to The Force of Not Responding, How to Get a Grip on Your Feelings. How about we leave on this life-changing experience one next to the other and find the power that comes from being in charge of our feelings. Envision being in charge of your feelings, not letting outrage, disappointment, or bitterness direct your reactions. It's tied in with stifling feelings, however, figuring out them, controlling them, and utilizing them carefully. You've likely been in circumstances where you responded rashly just to think twice about it later. Be that as it may, imagine a scenario where you could prepare yourself to answer as opposed to respond, to remain composed regardless of the disorder around you. Here we will dive into a deliberate way to deal with involving non-response as an instrument for close-to-home guideline, giving a new perspective regarding the matter. Might it be said that you are ready to go on this life-changing experience? For more data about the digital book adaptation of this sound, check the video portrayal or visit Book Recordings. We noticed that 69% of you who pay attention to our video are not yet bought into the channel. Kindly assist with supporting the channel by raising a ruckus around town button and preferring the video. Gratitude for moving us to make more happy for you. Part 1 Comprehension. Profound triggers. At any point asked why certain circumstances or remarks quickly drive you mad, miserable, or restless. You're in good company. These abrupt profound responses are frequently brought about by what are known as close-to-home triggers. Understanding these triggers is the most vital move towards overseeing your responses. Profound triggers are essentially occasions, discussions, or even individuals that flash extreme, frequently overpowering feelings inside us. They're profoundly private and are frequently connected to previous encounters or profoundly imbued convictions about ourselves or our general surroundings. For instance, in the event that you were tormented in school, a partner's random comment could set off sensations of uncertainty and dread. Or on the other hand, on the off chance that you've grown up feeling disregarded, being ignored in a discussion could set off sensations of outrage or disdain. In any case, it's memorable, vital that these feelings aren't really an impression of the current second or reality. They're more similar to reverberations of previous encounters. Perceiving this can inconceivably free. It can assist you with grasping that you're not responding to the ongoing circumstance, yet rather to a memory or a trepidation. Understanding your close-to-home triggers isn't tied in with accusing others. It's tied in with acquiring understanding into your own close-to-home scene. By becoming mindful of what sets you off, you can begin to assume command over your responses. You can start to pick how you answer your triggers instead of being under their control. Notwithstanding profound triggers, crucially, you should grasp your default reaction, as it frequently happens naturally and can cloud your capacity to mindfully respond. This reaction, imbued in your conduct over the long run, is your go-to response when stood up to with stressors or conflicts. It's that brief instant choice you make, frequently automatically, because of feeling profound. It's fundamental to perceive that these default reactions aren't intrinsically positive or negative. They're essentially your molded responses, and they can be changed. In any case, to roll out an improvement, you first need to recognize what they are. Is it true that you are fast to outrage? Do you withdraw into quietness? Maybe you become excessively satisfying, or perhaps you in a flash divert and fault others. The initial step is to pinpoint your programmed responses. To recognize your default reaction, you'll have to do a touch of reflection. Ponder past circumstances where your feelings were high. What was your prompt response? Did you speak more loudly, pull out, or burst out crying? Keep in mind, there's no correct response here. The objective is unadulterated comprehension. Making a decision about yourself during this process is significant. You're not a terrible individual for responding the manner in which you do. These reactions have likely served you here and there, conceivably as a defensive measure. Yet, by recognizing them, you make the way for overseeing your close-to-home responses later on. It's a fundamental stage in saddling the force of not responding. As you dive further into your close-to-home reactions, you'll start to see the actual signs that go with them, giving further understanding into this programmed interaction. These physiological reactions might incorporate an expanded pulse, shallow breathing, or even a feeling of disquiet in your stomach. It's indispensable to comprehend that these actual responses aren't simply arbitrary events, they're your body's approach to flagging that something is blending inwardly. Perceiving these real signs resembles learning another dialect, the language of mindfulness. It's difficult, however it's worth the effort. Right away, you could battle to separate between the physiological reactions to various feelings. Try not to surrender, it's an interaction. Urge yourself to remain patient and inquisitive, in light of the fact that understanding your body's reactions will arm you with the information you want to deal with your responses better. This acknowledgement stage isn't about judgment, it's about perception. As you become more acquainted with your body's responses, you'll foster an elevated feeling of mindfulness that can be both edifying and engaging. You'll begin understanding that a sped-up heartbeat mightn't be just about dread, it very well may be energy as well. Or on the other hand, that irregularity in your stomach mightn't be about fear, it very well may be expectation. Bridling the force of a psychological delay button can be your most prominent partner in dealing with profound responses. This respite button is certainly not an actual substance, however a psychological build that you can make, change, and use for your potential benefit. Everything revolves around making a fleeting break in the chain of considerations or feelings that could lead you to a moment, frequently unconsidered, response. Picture this respite button as a plug sign that springs up to you when you begin feeling overpowered or receptive. It's your cerebrum's prompt to stop, reevaluate what is going on. This could appear to be a basic idea, yet it's frequently not exactly simple or easy. Try not to be dispirited in the event that you find it trying to stop as your feelings erupt. It's an expertise that requires investment and practice to dominate. At the point when you initially begin utilizing your respite button, you may just figure out how to get yourself after you've responded. That is fine. The significant thing is you turning out to be more mindful of your profound reactions and beginning to address them. Over the long run, you'll get better at hitting stop before you respond. Breathing methods can assist with quieting your brain and body, particularly when you're nearly a profound response. It's not enchantment, however, science. Your breath is personally associated with your sensory system, and by controlling it, you can move your close-to-home state. We should investigate a famous procedure called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. This method includes breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 7 seconds, and breathing out for 8 seconds. By doing this, you're taking more oxygen in and invigorating your parasympathetic sensory system, which advances a condition of serenity. At the point when you're in a sincerely charged express, your body goes into a survival mode. Your breathing becomes shallow and quick, obfuscating your judgment. By deliberately changing your breathing example, you're really turning around these actual responses, allowing you the opportunity to think obviously and answer instead of respond indiscreetly. The more you practice these breathing methods, the more normal they'll turn into. At last, you'll wind up utilizing them naturally at whatever point you're in a difficult circumstance. So next time you experience the intensity of wrath or the sting of harm, stop, inhale, and recapture control. It's a little step, yet a critical one in the excursion towards close-to-home dominance. These breathing procedures offer one more layer of command over your feelings, and that is the force of not responding. Integrating care into your day-to-day schedule can significantly change the manner in which you answer life's high points and low points, making it a fundamental device in your close-to-home control tool stash. It's not just about contemplation or yoga. It's tied in with being available in every second and noticing your considerations and sentiments without judgment. Consider, for instance, while you're having a discussion. Is it safe to say that you are truly tuning in, or would you say you are trusting that your turn will talk? By giving full consideration to what the other individual is talking about, you're rehearsing care. You're not responding hastily, but instead you're answering mindfully and valuably. This straightforward demonstration can go quite far in working on your connections and lessening pressure. A similar applies while you're eating. Instead of thoughtlessly crunching ceaselessly, attempt to enjoy each nibble. Notice the surface, the taste, the smell. Thusly, you're upgrading your eating experience, yet additionally advancing better absorption and forestalling gorging. Care can likewise be worked on during routine exercises like washing dishes, cleaning your teeth, or in any event, strolling. Rather than allowing your brain to meander, center around the impression of the water on your hands, the fibers against your gums, or the ground under your feet. This can bring a feeling of harmony and quiet, making you less responsive to outer conditions. Creating mindfulness abilities. Expanding upon the act of care, creating mindfulness abilities turns into a basic piece of overseeing responses and developing a more healthy lifestyle. It's tied in with turning into the eyewitness of your own considerations, feelings, and ways of behaving. This self-perception isn't about judgment or analysis. It's somewhat a delicate and sympathetic investigation into one's own internal functions. At the point when you practice mindfulness, you begin to see themes. Perhaps you respond pointedly when you're worn out, or maybe you're more restless when you're ravenous. These are windows into your way of behaving, potential chances to figure out your triggers, and to develop a more adjusted reaction. There's no need to focus on smothering your responses, however, about figuring out how to successfully explore them more. Creating mindfulness likewise implies recognizing your assets and shortcomings. It requires trustworthiness and mental fortitude to confront your constraints. However, it's through this affirmation that you can start to make changes to develop and to foster a more adjusted and fulfilling life. Creating mindfulness is an expertise, and like any ability, it takes practice. An excursion of self-revelation can be testing, yet in addition unquestionably fulfilling. Once in a while, having a goal and compassionate audience, similar to an advisor or a mentor, can give important experiences and direction. Navigating the ocean of feelings, marking and tolerating them turns into a pivotal move toward overseeing responses. It's tied in with recognizing your feelings, yet in addition recognizing them, even the awkward ones. This cycle permits you to grasp your profound examples and their triggers, along these lines overseeing your responses. The main thing to do is to perceive your feelings. Is it safe to say that you are feeling furious, miserable, disappointed, or restless? Try not to avoid these sentiments. All things being equal, name them, express them without holding back, or scribble them down. This demonstration of marking makes a mental distance among you and the inclination, empowering you to notice it instead of being consumed by it. Acknowledgement follows marking. Acknowledgement, however, doesn't mean abdication or carelessness. Rather, it's tied in with recognizing that these feelings are important for you and they have a reason. They're signals informing you something concerning your current circumstance, or your internal state. Perceiving that your feelings, even the pessimistic ones, are there for a legitimate explanation assists you with tolerating them. Keep in mind, tolerating your feelings doesn't mean you need to follow up on them. You're permitted to feel irate without becoming suddenly angry, to feel miserable without surrendering to despondency. Acknowledgement basically gives the clearness to comprehend these sentiments, reducing the power they've over your responses. Marking and tolerating feelings is an expertise that takes practice. However, with time and persistence, you'll find that this cycle can prompt significant self-improvement and work on profound control. It's a vital stage in saddling the force of not responding. Section 6 Reevaluating pessimistic contemplations. Subsequent to becoming the best at naming and tolerating feelings, now is the right time to handle another fundamental expertise: rethinking your pessimistic considerations. This psychological activity expects you to pick a positive or impartial translation over a negative one intentionally. It's tied in with changing your viewpoint to see circumstances from an alternate, seriously engaging point. Consider this: you're trapped in rush hour gridlock and you're late for a gathering. The disappointment floods and you think, this generally happens to me. For what reason do I have such misfortune? This is a negative perspective that can twisting wild, prompting uplifted pressure and nervousness. Be that as it may, by reevaluating you could think: all things considered, this traffic gives personal chance to unwind and stand by listening to my most loved web recording before the gathering. Re-examining isn't tied in with denying reality or staying away from antagonism. It's tied in with augmenting your perspective, recognizing the presence of alternate points of view and picking the one that serves you best. Antagonism can restrict your true capacity and deny you of the delight in your life. By rethinking, you're changing your contemplations as well as your close-to-home reaction to circumstances. Frequently, the world isn't from your perspective yet as you decipher it. Reevaluating gives a method for moving that understanding to a more certain or nonpartisan one, which can unbelievably free. It's tied in with controlling your considerations and feelings and relinquishing what you can't. This is the genuine force of not responding, and an expertise can significantly further develop your close-to-home prosperity. Sympathy and sympathy, while excelling at re-examining your pessimistic contemplations, gives you command over your feelings. Rehearsing compassion and empathy permits you to broaden that control and figuring out in answering the feelings of others. These twin excellencies, sympathy and empathy, are the entryways to the capacity to understand people on a deeper level, empowering you to interface with others on a more profound level. Sympathy, the capacity to comprehend and talk about the thoughts of others, is definitely not an inborn expertise. It's something you can create, similar to a muscle. Begin by effectively tuning in. At the point when somebody discusses their thoughts, don't simply hear the words. Tune in for the feelings behind them. Approve those feelings, regardless of whether you wouldn't feel what is happening. Keep in mind, there's no need to focus on you, it's about them. Sympathy, then again, goes above and beyond. It's figuring out somebody's agony, however needing to lighten it. To develop empathy, attempt to imagine the other individual's perspective. Envision what it's prefer to be them, to sympathize with their aggravation, their happiness, their dissatisfaction. It's memorable's fundamental that rehearsing sympathy and empathy doesn't mean you're liable for fixing others' feelings. Your job is to comprehend, approve, and share as far as they can tell. This training can assist you with answering instead of respond to profound circumstances, giving you more prominent command over your own feelings and collaborations. In your excursion towards the capacity to understand people on a deeper level, claiming your responses is a basic step, as it engages you to oversee your feelings, yet additionally the manner in which you express them. Perceiving that you're the one in charge of your responses, not the circumstance or the individual who could have set off them, is critical to creating profound dependability. This is an indispensable need, yet it's an excursion worth taking. Ponder your standard responses to various circumstances. Could it be said that they are really serving you? Frequently we respond rashly, determined by sense or propensity, disregarding whether our reaction is gainful or disastrous. You have the ability to change this. By recognizing that your responses are your obligation, you can start to pick reactions that line up with your qualities and objectives. This doesn't mean stifling your feelings. It's tied in with figuring out them, handling them, and afterward concluding how best to communicate them. It's tied in with figuring out how to stop prior to responding, making a hole where decision dwells. This delay permits you to answer instead of respond, to pick figuring out over judgment, and persistence over dissatisfaction. Assuming a sense of ownership with your responses likewise includes tolerating the outcomes of your activities. On the off chance that your responses have inflicted any kind of damage, setting things straight is vital, and setting things straight where conceivable. This assists with patching connections, yet additionally supports your obligation to personal growth. Building profound flexibility, your defensive layer against life's difficulties, requires a profound comprehension of your feelings and a guarantee to explore through them as opposed to around. About fostering a powerful close-to-home and vulnerable framework can endure pressure, misfortune, and difficulty. The capacity to return and recuperate from profound mishaps is crucial for keeping up with your psychological well-being and in general prosperity. We should, right off the bats, perceive that profound strength isn't tied in with keeping away from or smothering your sentiments. In actuality, it's tied in with recognizing them, figuring out their beginnings, and figuring out how to really oversee them. You have no control over the waves, yet you can figure out how to surf. Besides, profound versatility is about adaptability and flexibility. Life doesn't generally go according to plan, and that is completely fine. It's the means by which you respond to these unforeseen changes that is important. Could you at any point adjust, change, and figure out how to flourish, in any event, when things don't turn out well for you? At last, building close-to-home strength includes developing a positive mentality. This doesn't mean you need to be lively constantly. It implies you're ready to clutch trust and hopefulness, even despite difficulty. It's tied in with zeroing in on what you have some control over and relinquishing what you can't. Part 10, Figuring out how to excuse rapidly. One more key technique in reinforcing your profound versatility is figuring out how to pardon rapidly, a stage that is frequently difficult yet unimaginably freeing. There's really no need to focus on excusing some unacceptable or imagining it didn't do any harm. It's tied in with liberating yourself from the significant weight of disdain and outrage that overloads you. At the point when you clutch feelings of resentment, you're not rebuffing the other individual, you're rebuffing yourself. Your psyche turns into a milestone of pessimistic feelings, depleting your energy and concentration. In any case, when you decide to pardon, you recapture control. You're not excusing for the well-being of they, however, for your own inner serenity. To dominate pardoning, begin by recognizing the hurt. Feeling violated, it's a characteristic reaction, is okay. Be that as it may, don't allow these sentiments to putrefy. Ponder what is going on equitably without allowing feelings to cloud your judgment. Ask yourself, is clutching this resentment helping you in any capacity? Then, at that point, settle on a cognizant choice to give up. It's difficult, and it doesn't come about by accident more or less. It's a cycle. Advise yourself that no one's perfect, including you. Understanding this can cause pardoning to feel less like a concession and more like an endowment of thoughtfulness to yourself. Finally, practice sympathy. Attempt to see things according to their point of view. This doesn't mean you're legitimizing their activities, yet just grasping them. This change in context can be a strong impetus for pardoning. Part 11, Relinquishing Self-Image and Pride. Shedding the heaviness of your self-image and pride can significantly change your close-to-home scene, making you more open, sympathetic, and versatile. Inner self and pride frequently act as a defensive protective layer, safeguarding against apparent dangers and weaknesses. Notwithstanding, they can likewise become boundaries, keeping you from recognizing your errors and discouraging your capacity to interface with others on a more profound level. Relinquishing self-image and pride isn't tied in with denying your self-worth or potential. It's tied in with laying out a better, more adjusted point of view of yourself corresponding to other people. About remembering you're not generally right, that you're not dependable, and that it's alright to be helpless and wrong now and again. You're human, all things considered. Start by turning out to be more mindful. Notice when your self-image or pride is assuming command over your responses. Is it safe to say that you are guarding yourself superfluously? Is it safe to say that you are declining to acknowledge input or analysis? Is it true or not that you are demanding triumphing ultimately the final word? These are obvious signs that your self-image and pride are steering the ship. Lowliness isn't tied in with being resigned or compliant, yet about perceiving your position, all things considered. You're significant, yet so is every other person. Your viewpoints matter, however others do as well. Come at the situation from others' perspective and attempt to figure out their viewpoints. This can assist you with turning out to be not so much cautious but rather more open to various perspectives. Relinquishing inner self and pride is a persistent excursion, not a one-time occasion. It requires persistence, modesty, and in particular, a readiness to change. Yet, the prize is further developed connections, better poise, and expanded ability to appreciate anyone on a deeper level. Put forth the attempt beneficial. In your excursion towards profound serenity, developing appreciation day to day turns into a priceless apparatus that can decisively improve your point of view. It's not just about saying thank you on a more regular basis, it's about really feeling grateful for the of all shapes and sizes things that make up your reality. This appreciation can make a support against pessimistic feelings and responses, assisting you with overseeing your close-to-home reactions. Having appreciation doesn't mean overlooking the negative parts of life. All things considered, it's tied in with finding an equilibrium and recognizing that even unsavory encounters can hold important illustrations. At the point when you're confronted with troubles, attempt to find something you can be thankful for in the midst of the disorder. This change in context can assist you with moving toward difficulties with a more certain mentality, lessening the probability of automatic profound responses. To develop appreciation, making it a day-to-day practice is useful. You could keep an appreciation diary where you write down a couple of things every day that you're grateful for. Buddy diary, where you write down a couple of things every day that you're grateful for. Over the long haul, you'll find that this training assists you with beginning normally seeing the positive parts of your life. You're not simply writing down words, you're overhauling your mind to zero in on the great as opposed to harping on the terrible. Part 13. Further developing relational abilities. Excelling at correspondence can significantly improve your capacity to keep up with profound equilibrium and cultivate solid connections. This expertise isn't inborn, however, it's something you can develop and refine over the long haul. It requires a specific level of mindfulness, sympathy, and persistence. First and foremost, the foundation of powerful correspondence lies in undivided attention. It's about really hearing what the other individual is talking about, as opposed to only trusting that your turn will talk. This exhibits regard and affirmation, which can prepare for transparent exchange. Furthermore, you ought to expect to communicate your sentiments and thoughts obviously and decisively, yet never forcefully. This differentiation is crucial. Decisiveness includes going to bat for your freedoms without abusing others, while hostility ignores the sentiments and requirements of others. Your words convey weight, so pick them admirably. Besides, nonverbal correspondence can be similarly as, while possibly not more, significant as what you say. Your nonverbal communication, looks, and manner of speaking convey messages about your profound state. Try to confirm that these line up with your verbal messages. At last, recall that correspondence is certainly not an oddball occasion. A continuous interaction needs standard practice. Be available to input, and make it a point to concede when you're off base. This shows development and an eagerness to develop, which can reinforce your connections and assist you with controlling your feelings all the more successfully. Eventually, recall that further developing your relational abilities is an excursion, not an objective. The more you practice, the better you'll get. So keep at it, and you'll receive the benefits in time. Section 14. De-raising struggles successfully. When clashes emerge, as they unavoidably will, your capacity to de-heighten what is going on really can considerably influence the result. De-acceleration isn't tied in with winning or losing. It's tied in with changing a possibly unstable circumstance into a more reasonable one. The initial step is to resist the urge to panic. Far from simple or easy, isn't that so? Nonetheless, your tranquility can frequently impact the other individual's feelings. Keep in mind, feelings are infectious. Assuming that you stay formed, you're unobtrusively uplifting the other individual to match your profound state. Then, listen mindfully. It's not difficult to become mixed up in our own contemplations during a contention, yet attempt to zero in on the other individual's words. Show sympathy, not judgment. Thusly, you approve their feelings and exhibit your eagerness to comprehend their point of view, which can assist with cooling what is happening. Then, at that point, utilize non-fierce language. Keep away from absolutes like generally or never, which can heighten strain. All things being equal, use I articulations to communicate your sentiments without accusing the other individual. For example, say I feel upset when rather than you generally. At long last, propose arrangements. Assuming the other party sees that you're focused on settling the contention as opposed to delaying it, they're bound to participate. However, it's memorable's fundamental that the objective of de-heightening isn't really to determine the contention immediately, yet to keep it from raising further. Dominating de-heightening strategies is a vital piece of outfitting the force of not responding. Keep in mind, there's actually no need to focus on stifling your feelings, yet successfully overseeing them to encourage better connections. Part 15. Defining solid limits. Navigating through life's intricacies, fundamental for you to define sound limits regard your close-to-home, physical, and mental prosperity. Defining limits isn't tied in with building walls or closing others out. All things considered, it's tied in with making a space where you have a good sense of reassurance, esteemed, and comprehended. Envision limits as undetectable lines that you draw around yourself. These lines characterize your own space and direct the way that you permit others to treat you. They frame your qualities, assumptions, and cutoff points. At the point when successfully set, these limits can support your confidence, opportunity, and uniqueness. Fostering these limits starts with mindfulness. You really want to grasp your sentiments, needs, and values. It's tied in with understanding what you can endure and acknowledge and what causes you to feel awkward or focused. Whenever you've distinguished these, impart them decisively. Be clear, yet empathetic, and recall, it's okay to say no. Regarding others' boundaries is likewise pivotal. Understanding and tolerating that others have their own cutoff points cultivates shared regard and sympathy. It's a two-way road. Defining limits can be hard, particularly on the off chance that you're not accustomed to it. You could fear dismissal or conflict, however recall, defining limits is an indication of dignity. It's tied in with focusing on your prosperity over satisfying others. Section 16 Overseeing pressure and nervousness while defining solid limits is a critical stage towards taking care of oneself. Figuring out how to oversee pressure and tension likewise assumes a fundamental part in keeping up with your general prosperity. Stress and nervousness can be overpowering, and whenever left unmanaged, they can prompt different physical and psychological well-being issues. One successful method for overseeing pressure and uneasiness is through care. Care permits you to remain present at the time as opposed to harping on disappointments or future anxieties. It's tied in with perceiving your sentiments without judgment and smoothly recognizing them as opposed to responding imprudently. Solid way of life decisions can emphatically decrease pressure and tension levels. Ordinary actual work discharges endorphins, the body's regular state of mind sponsors. Legitimate sustenance energizes your body and brain, while satisfactory rest gives the rest they need to work at their best. Mentality additionally assumes a significant part. It's generally expected not simply the conditions that cause pressure and uneasiness, however your impression of them. By re-evaluating pessimistic contemplations into good ones, you can emphatically diminish these sentiments. Rather than review testing circumstances as issues, consider them to be valuable open doors for development. Finally, make it a point to proficient assistance in the event that pressure and uneasiness become excessively overpowering. Specialists and instructors are there to offer help and show survival methods. Keep in mind, it's completely fine to request help and it's an indication of solidarity, not shortcoming. Overseeing pressure and tension is an excursion, not an objective. It's about consistent learning and adjusting. With these techniques, you're making strides towards a better, more joyful you. Section 17. Creating persistence and resistance. Frequently, you'll observe that creating persistence and resistance is as vital for your prosperity as overseeing pressure and tension. These characteristics aren't tied in with smothering your feelings, however, about figuring out them and deciding not to allow them to control you. It's tied in with recognizing that you have zero control over everything around you, yet you have some control over how you respond to it. Creating tolerance requires understanding that things require some investment. You can't rush self-improvement, mending, or change. It's pausing, yet effectively getting it and tolerating the time it takes for things to work out. That is where resistance comes in. It's tied in with tolerating that not all things will turn out well for you, and that is totally fine. It's tied in with embracing the uneasiness of the obscure and not allowing it to incite you into imprudent responses. How would you foster these characteristics? Begin by recognizing your sentiments. While you're feeling anxious or narrow-minded, don't overlook it or push it away. All things considered, remember it, mark it, and break down it. What's causing these sentiments? For what reason would you say you are responding along these lines? This mindfulness is the most vital move towards creating persistence and resilience. Then, practice care. At the point when you're completely present at the time, not choosing not to move on or agonizing over the future, you'll view it more straightforward as quiet and open-minded. Care assists you with perceiving that your sentiments are impermanent and that responding rashly won't help over the long haul. Section 18 Rehearsing self-sympathy routinely in bridling the force of not responding. It's basic to consistently rehearse self-empathy. You really want to comprehend that self-empathy isn't just about being caring to yourself. It's an indispensable component for profound flexibility and mental prosperity. Embracing self-empathy resembles making a way for a better mental state, and rehearsing it consistently can on a very basic level change how you see and manage life's difficulties. It's a demonstration of figuring out your feelings, recognizing your aggravation, and answering it with graciousness and care. It's tied in with cherishing yourself, blemishes whatnot. As you extend how you might interpret self-empathy, you'll track down it's something beyond being benevolent to yourself. About perceiving enduring and individual insufficiency are essential for the common human experience. You're in good company in your battles, and being imperfect is okay. While you're battling, rather than censuring yourself, attempt to offer a similar solace and understanding you'd give a dear companion. That is rehearsing self-sympathy. There's no need to focus on overlooking your sentiments or smothering your agony. It's tied in with permitting yourself to feel these feelings and giving a place of refuge to them. By rehearsing self-empathy consistently, you're not simply being benevolent to yourself, you're in a general sense forming a versatility that can assist with enduring life's hardest tempests. This isn't simply a theoretical idea, it's an incredible asset that you can use to all the more likely deal with your feelings and responses. At the point when you're humane toward yourself, you're recognizing that being imperfect is okay. You're permitting yourself to commit errors unafraid of brutal judgment. This can prominently decrease feelings of anxiety and lift your general prosperity. Self-empathy likewise cultivates a more profound close-to-home comprehension. It supports perceiving your feelings without allowing them to control you. You become all the more sincerely smart, ready to recognize what you're feeling without quickly responding. Besides, it assists in building a sound connection with yourself. It's memorably vital that the relationship you have with yourself establishes the vibe for any remaining connections in your day-to-day existence. Basically, rehearsing self-sympathy not just assists you with keeping a reasonable profound state, yet in addition upgrades your capacity to deal with life's highs and lows. It's an integral asset that, when utilized routinely, can give significant advantages in your excursion toward close-to-home dominance. To develop a standard act of self-sympathy, you'll have to incorporate careful propensities into your everyday existence that sustain graciousness towards yourself intentionally. Begin by saving a couple of moments every day to consider your contemplations and sentiments. Perceive your blemishes and mix-ups as innate parts of being human. It's okay to stagger what's significant is your flexibility to get back up. Then, practice self-generosity. Address yourself as you to a dear companion. Supplant brutal self-analysis with understanding and consolation. Keep in mind, feeling torment or discomfort is okay. These feelings are essential for life, and they don't characterize your value or abilities. Finally, keep a fair point of view. Try not to make a huge deal about things or disparage your own sentiments. Recognize your feelings without judgment and let them pass normally. Developing self-sympathy isn't tied in with overlooking your battles, yet rather about giving yourself the comprehension and persistence you really want to explore them. Rehearsing self-sympathy consistently resembles improving an ability. It requires investment and constancy, yet the prizes are enormous. So show restraint toward yourself. Over the long haul, you'll see a huge change in your close-to-home flexibility and generally prosperity. Part 19. Conquering past profound injury. You might have psychological weight that has been concealed, yet it's significant to defy this to saddle the force of not responding really. This doesn't mean allowing these previous injuries to consume you. All things being equal, it's tied in with figuring out them, controlling your profound reactions to them, and eventually mending. Disentangling the firmly twisted strings of past close-to-home injury can feel like an impressive undertaking, yet it's a fundamental stage in the excursion towards recuperating and self-disclosure. There's really no need to focus on uncovering injuries from a long time ago for it, but instead to comprehend the effect they've had on your close-to-home reactions. You're not your past, however your past can impact you. Understanding this is key in unloading your psychological weight. Begin by recognizing that your feelings are legitimate and it's alright to feel the manner in which you do. Your sentiments are genuine and they matter. Then, recognize the wellsprings of your feelings. Whether it's a previous relationship, family issues, or a horrible mishap, nailing down the underlying driver is a significant piece of the interaction. Saddling the force of close-to-home control, it's feasible to beat the shadows of past injury, transforming them into venturing stones towards a more grounded, better you. This is certainly not a short-term process. It requires persistence, mindfulness, and a solid obligation to recuperating. Your initial step is to recognize your previous injuries. Try not to drive them away or cover them where it counts. Deal with them directly, comprehend the aggravation they've caused, and acknowledge that they've formed you. Then, work on re-examining your considerations. It's not difficult to allow past damages to characterize you, yet recollect that, you're not a result of your misery. You're significantly more than that. Begin by perceiving this reality and gradually you'll start to rethink yourself. At last, practice profound guideline. This implies not responding in a flash to profound triggers. All things considered, make a stride back, inhale, and break down your sentiments prior to answering. This delay permits you to pick how to respond as opposed to being constrained by your feelings. Mending through close-to-home control is an excursion, not an objective. It's tied in with developing, changing, and turning into your best self. Keep in mind, you're in good company in this cycle. You have the ability to get a grip on your feelings and mend from quite a while ago. Part 20 Embracing Defects and Slip-Ups. You're in good company in your battle to acknowledge individual imperfections and conquer the apprehension about disappointment. It's a common human encounter, an excursion set apart by the fortitude to face our defects and mix-ups as opposed to responding indiscreetly or protectively. Embracing these parts of ourselves instead of driving them away engages us to develop, learn, and push ahead with strength and beauty. Perceiving and tolerating your own defects isn't just a critical stage towards personal growth, but at the same time it's a strong method for upgrading your versatility notwithstanding life's difficulties. We as a whole have blemishes, and that is completely fine. You're in good company in this excursion of self-disclosure and acknowledgement. It's an all-inclusive human experience. These imperfections don't characterize you, yet the way in which you handle them can. By tolerating your blemishes, you're recognizing that you're a work underway, and that is entirely fine. You're permitting yourself to be human, to commit errors, and to gain from them. It's a freeing feeling that encourages self-improvement, versatility, and close-to-home dependability. By tolerating your defects, you're recognizing that you're a work underway, and that is totally fine. You're permitting yourself to be human, to commit errors, and to gain from them. Notwithstanding, acknowledgement isn't about smugness. It's anything but a reason to quit chasing after progress. It's tied in with grasping your shortcomings without judgment or self-analysis, and utilizing this attention to really explore your life more. Can we just look at things objectively? Everyone makes mistakes sometimes, and everybody flops sooner or later, yet it's the way you return quickly from these difficulties that genuinely characterizes your solidarity and character. Conquering the apprehension about disappointment starts with recognizing that it's alright to stagger. It's a basic piece of learning and developing. Your feeling of dread toward disappointment could come from a firmly established need for flawlessness. Keep in mind, flaw doesn't compare to deficiency. It's an indication of being human. Rather than fearing botches, view them as venturing stones to personal development. This mentality shift can incapacitate the trepidation, permitting you to move toward errands with a freshly discovered strength. At the point when you do fizzle, don't flounder in self-indulgence or allow lament to consume you. Consider what turned out badly, extricate the examples, and afterward let go. You're not characterized by your disappointments, but rather by how you respond to them. Embrace your blemishes and mix-ups. They're not indications of shortcoming, but rather proof of your boldness to get out of your usual range of familiarity. By defeating your apprehension about disappointment, you're one bit nearer to dominating the force of not responding. You're figuring out how to get a handle on your feelings, preparing for a more settled, more healthy lifestyle. Section 21. Fostering a development outlook. In your excursion to dominate the force of not responding, fostering a development mentality is a basic step. It's tied in with grasping this attitude, sustaining close-to-home versatility, and trying it. How about we investigate this together and perceive how it can reshape your responses and collaborations? While it might appear to be trying from the get-go, embracing a development mentality can significantly improve your own and proficient turn of events, encouraging strength and an uplifting perspective towards learning and development. It's tied in with accepting that your capacities can be created through commitment, difficult work, and indeed, even disappointment. An idea moves your concentration from the end. Highlight the excursion, from the grade to the educational experience, from flawlessness to advance. You'll find that having a development mentality urges you to see difficulties as any open doors rather than dangers. There's no need to focus on staying away from hardships, yet rather viewing them as venturing stones towards progress. It's tied in with being available to input and analysis, not as an excusal of your value, but rather as important experiences for your turn of events. Understanding a development outlook likewise implies perceiving that work is vital to progress. It's about ability or insight, yet the assurance to continue to go in any event, when circumstances become difficult. It's tied in with enduring notwithstanding mishaps, realizing that they're essential for the excursion to authority. Embrace this outlook and you're now headed to growing better profound control. Building profound versatility remains closely connected with embracing a development mentality, offering you the solidarity to explore life's difficulties with effortlessness and flexibility. There's no need to focus on overlooking your sentiments, or it is fine to imagine everything. All things being equal, flexibility is tied in with recognizing your feelings, figuring out them, and permitting them to pass without allowing them to control you. Developing flexibility starts with mindfulness. By perceiving and recognizing your close-to-home responses, you're venturing out towards controlling them. It's alright to feel furious, irate, or restless. These feelings are important for being human. Then, practice self-sympathy. Comprehend that it's okay to commit errors and have awful days. These encounters don't characterize what your identity is. They're simply venturing stones in your excursion of development and personal growth. Ultimately, keep an uplifting perspective. In any event, when confronted with difficulty, try to track down the silver lining. Keep in mind, challenges are open doors for development. They assist you with becoming more grounded, smarter, and stronger. To really bridle the force of a development outlook, you really want to apply it in your everyday existence, embracing difficulties as any open doors for personal growth and learning. Begin by perceiving that difficulties aren't disappointments, however illustrations. Each time you stagger, you're allowed an opportunity to develop, to more readily grasp yourself and your general surroundings. Develop interest. Be available to new encounters and welcome alternate points of view. At the point when you approach circumstances with a curious psyche, it's more straightforward to see prospects as opposed to deterrents. Keep in mind, your knowledge and capacities aren't fixed. They're fit for development. You're not stuck where you are. With exertion, tirelessness, and an uplifting perspective, you can learn and get to the next level. Try not to avoid productive analysis. It's anything but an individual assault, yet an instrument for development. Embrace it, gain from it, and use it to impel yourself forward. Applying a development outlook includes steady practice and persistence, yet the prizes are worth the effort. You'll acquire better close-to-home control, become stronger, and open ways to personal development and individual achievement. The force of not responding exists in you, and now is the right time to take advantage of it. Part 22. Keeping up with profound equilibrium. Dominating your feelings permits you to make a stable close-to-home equilibrium, which isn't just valuable for your emotional well-being, yet in addition significant in the craft of not responding hastily. This feeling of harmony permits you to answer, not respond, to life's many difficulties. It resembles being the quiet eye at the focal point of a tempest, impenetrable to the disarray spinning around you. To accomplish this equilibrium, you should initially comprehend your profound triggers, what circumstances or individuals incite extraordinary responses in you. Whenever you've recognized these, you can deal with methodologies to oversee them. This could include moving away from specific conditions, or it could require more inside-and-out mental work. Then, practice care. Remain present and spotlight on the present time and place. This assists you with trying not to harp on disappointments or future concerns, which can undoubtedly steer your close-to-home result. Keep in mind, you have no control over everything around you, yet you have some control over your response to them. Moreover, taking care of oneself is fundamental. Eating steadily, getting sufficient rest, and customary activity can settle your mindset and increment your close-to-home flexibility. Keep in mind, your actual prosperity significantly impacts your close-to-home state. Ultimately, don't smother your feelings. Permit yourself to feel and communicate your feelings in solid ways. Suppressing sentiments can prompt a close-to-home blast later on. It's tied in with controlling, not subduing your feelings. Keeping a profound equilibrium isn't tied in with staying away from feelings, yet rather overseeing them. It's an excursion, not an objective, and it's totally inside your grip. With training and persistence, you can dominate this ability and saddle the force of not responding incautiously. To dominate the force of not responding, it's essential to figure out your profound triggers and figure out how to stop prior to answering. Like a knight in sparkling reinforcement, furnish yourself with profound breathing strategies, a development outlook, and your very own comprehension blemishes. Keep in mind, you're the expert of your feelings, not the opposite way around. Thus, assume responsibility, develop appreciation, and walk into a future where your profound equilibrium rules. Gratitude for paying attention to or perusing this from Book Recordings Office.